far as how you make a project green, that's a question we get asked a lot, and it's a good question. Again, a lot of it comes from leadership and commitment, particularly from the owner and the user. It is absolutely essential. And a lot of it requires education from the architect's point of view and the consultant team. It requires a totally integrated design team, which you can see in the diagram of all of the people that need to be involved. You can't have a green building with any one of those elements missing, from the commissioning to the interior designer, landscape, whatever the case may be. The consultants have to be fully on board. And now, I would say it's rare that you'll find an engineering consultant, mechanical engineering or structural, who is not really up to snuff and anxious to try to excel in that arena. The construction manager is essential. For Times Square, if it hadn't been for Dan Tishman being taken over the Tishman organization, and Douglas and Jody Durst being the younger generation of the Durst organization, and ourselves, it probably never could have happened. But that culture became the culture of the project. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And of course, financial backers. One of the problems that most clients have had is that the financial industry has not been supportive of this. They don't see it as a good investment, which is really pretty silly, because there are many paybacks, many advantages. And that pendulum is finally starting to swing, and a lot of the financial institutions are building green buildings themselves. It does require some fees. The owners have to be prepared to pay additional fees for specialty consultants. The research, development, and analysis, we'll talk a little bit about that later, particularly in the Times building. And the lead or equivalent applications takes time and it takes money.
You know, it's a funny thing because I'm sure we're guessing that our audience here tonight is very familiar with all of these things, and we almost feel embarrassed to have to reiterate it, but it's really just common sense. And the integrated design approach, while it seems very intuitive and it seems like absolutely the right thing to do, oftentimes when we approach a new project, especially with the corporate commercial sector, we're dealing with people who have come through an educational process which has really taught them a different model. Most engineering programs still teach the combustion engine, and it's very difficult to talk about renewables and other types of energy-producing systems when you're dealing with people who've been trained in the combustion engine. They tend to think about gasoline and combustion. And so what you have to do is it takes a little bit of time to convince some people who have done very well for themselves working in a certain top-down hierarchical model to consider an alternative approach to project management, which would be the integrated design team. And Bruce maybe has had some success, I think, talking about charrettes and what they had to go through with 4 Times Square. I don't know if there's anything you want to add about that.
Well, yes, we early on in the project, when we started that project, nobody said anything about sustainability. Was at that point in time. But one of the first things we did was have a retreat, which was with the construction manager, the engineers, architects, owners, and so forth, which was a 3-day retreat up in Westchester. And we included in that, at that point in time, there was enough interest expressed in making it a sustainable green building, that we invited a representative of Rocky Mountain Institute, and part of that retreat, which was all about the process of building that building and how we had to work together and so forth, and structure the whole organization of the project. The Rocky Mountain Institute, we then broke out into work groups, including the Rocky Mountain Institute, to talk about the potential for green. And we basically developed a wish list of all the things that we thought we could possibly do on that project, and then reviewed it collectively with the whole group, and then basically set the course for where the where the process would go from there in terms of But one of the key things is there has to be an open dialogue on where the green aspect is included in every discussion, every decision. There are thousands and thousands of decisions that go into a project such as 4 Times Square. And if it isn't part of if the green aspect isn't part of the component, or if somebody's going to giggle if somebody mentions something that sounds silly because they've never done it that way in their lives, it's just the wrong atmosphere. It has to be a very positive, open atmosphere. And no project can be really holistically green without every single detail being addressed in that way. And then just training, the training process to fully engage all members of the design and construction team is absolutely essential. These retreats, we ended up having 3 more of those retreats at 4 Times Square, even at the point where we had the subcontractors on board to talk about all of how they're going to handle each thing and how the waste disposal was going to be dealt with on the site and so forth.
Yeah, it's one of those opportunities where the architect and the contractor get to meet before the design documents are finished. And I remember a lot of times having some very interesting conversations about, not with contractors because they know, but with some of our other clients